Join us for White Wellbeing.
Yay!
Let's eat.
Our children are priceless, and we would do anything to protect them. So why aren't you using Go Free to protect them from the most harmful ideas? Decades in the making, Go Free is a simple yet brilliant practice designed to free us from destructive socio-political ideas. As words are the tools with which we think, Go Free promotes precise, simple, and targeted language to counteract psychological warfare. When you go free of the system's control over your word choice, you liberate your thinking. As you grow, you can empower others. And the most important thing you can do is inoculate our children against the ideas that are meant to harm them.
Hello, Boy Spirit. Hello, Eindelin.
Good morning, Hans. Good to see you.
Sound check. Hello, Boy.
I heard you, Hans.
Yes, I have an anonymous listener as well, and that's the echo that you heard. Hello, Julia.
Hi. I still haven't listened to the last two spaces, but of course they get all exciting and epic while I can't attend. But I'm looking forward to tonight.
Just quickly sorting the first link and then I'll start.
Okay, I'll ramble for a moment then. Um, there is, so I'm basically like living in Cologne for a short period, essentially, while some construction is being done on the plumbing in my home. And there's this Irish pub nearby, and every Sunday they have like a Sunday roast with Yorkshire pudding, which I've actually never had. I need to just make it. It's really easy to make. Um, and I was really excited to try it last Sunday, but they told me they were sold out. And I go yesterday, I mean today at early, like at 6 p.m. And they say they're sold out. And I'm like, what? Like at 6 p.m. And I'm like, what time do you usually sell out? And they say 2 to 3 p.m. And I'm like, oh, so I need to come for lunch. And they're like, yeah. So if I'm still here next Sunday, which will depend on what happens on the report I get tomorrow, then maybe I will make it in time. But I then found the oldest brewery in Cologne, the oldest brewery that is still in uh, in service. So it's I think it's 1633 or something founded, and cash only, very German menu. Um, I came in, I had a matcha latte. I'm obsessed with matcha, and they're like in German, of course. How are like you don't come into another establishment drinking a beverage from another establishment, and I just put it in my purse, of course. Um, and it was fine. But it was just funny because this is the first time that this has happened. I sometimes do this other times, but I still order drinks like where I go, like I'll an expensive sparkling water. So but I thought it was nice actually to be berated and upheld to our Western norms. It was a proper German man who berated me. Um, so yeah, and it was all German people in this place. Lovely, beautiful old place. Lots of old wood, dark old wood, and all Germans. Um, there were some elderly people just by themselves, but I guess they were there to soak up the ambience. I thought that was nice too, better than to be sitting at home alone.
I remember when we were in Europe, it was interesting how they always use the correct glass. So the one beer goes in that beer glass, and the other beer goes in that beer. Especially we were in Belgium. I don't know how it's in the rest of Europe, but they were very particular about which beer goes in which glass.
Yeah, they're like that here in Germany as well. Of course, I mean Germans are very, very particular. That's definitely where I get my OCD tendencies of everything must be just so. Definitely comes from my German side. Um, but I wouldn't. But I love that part of myself. It it's it's attention to detail, and of course a love of deep cleanliness, which is next to godliness, as they say. So can't complain about that. And the food was very, very good. It was like I think the first time where I've had mashed potatoes here. They don't they're not like a proper mashed potato per my American taste in the sense that they're not like whipped and creamy the way the US ones. They're kind of like chunky, but these are the first ones I've had where I could actually taste the butter at a restaurant, of course, where I could taste the butter in them. And I was like, finally, real mashed potatoes. It's just wrong if you can't taste immense amounts of butter in your mashed potatoes. You know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you about Belgium, because when I went there, and by the way, my employer made a mistake. And then instead of flying economy, I flew business class. So I scored a business class trip to Belgium. But I knew Belgium for chocolate and beer. But when I got there, I was just stunned by the quality of their bread. Um, every morning, um, and it was fresh bread, and a wide variety of different bread, and they were all different. And that's what I ate for breakfast, is fresh bread with butter, and that was basically it. I was just surprised, and I thought, if I was interested in that kind of business, I would make a killing bringing that bread to South Africa, because in South Africa all bread is this mass produced, um, tastes the same, just different, shapes and things. Yeah, it's feeding the masses. That's what bread is for in South Africa.
That's very sad that you don't have real bread. But it's kind of the same way in the US for many years. Like when I was, in the 80s, um, uh, if you lived in a rural-ish area like I did, there wasn't good bread. Like, uh, that's one of the reasons my family got like a bread machine. And that was actually better than the store-bought bread, although still not quite to my gourmand tastes. But the yeah, German bread is amazing, and French bread is amazing. Italian bread is not, because they don't use salt. There's some types of Italian bread that are really good, like focaccia is amazing. But like typically, like their standard bread that they use for most things is not salted. It's weird. But then their pizza dough is salted. It's just like their table bread isn't salted. It was very strange. But yeah, the variety is incredible. Um, definitely, if you are a carb lover, then Germany is a place to go.
Okay, I think it's time. Let's kick this off. Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG space. We hold the space every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We are a no white guilt community that meets to practice the concepts and lexicon developed by Jason Kiernan, Mr. No White Guilt himself. You can find him here on X as No White Guilt NWG. That's No White Guilt NWG. On YouTube and elsewhere as simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. We discuss a wide variety of topics of interest to white people and look for ways to apply solutions. I'm Hans, your host. We run pretty casual here, but I do ask that you raise your hand if you would like to jump in. Otherwise, I will call on speakers in turn for their thoughts. If you'd like to hop in, just request a mic and we'll get you set up. We only ask that you comport yourself as much as possible to the Go Free lexicon and dialectic and act like a proper lady or gentleman of the West as applicable. Let's go. So, the first man of the West again. Every day is man of the West. And today it's Michael Faraday. Now, if the first thought that jumps into your head is that little Faraday cage that you put your cell phone in, then you're probably a bit too paranoid for this group. But yes, that is the Faraday in Faraday cage. It's Michael Faraday. So one of he is possibly in the history of science the one who is most underappreciated, and I think part of that is because he could never do mathematics. He grew up poor, the son of a blacksmith, and this limited him in terms of taking his ideas to their final conclusion, where they would, be of practical use. But other people took his ideas and who had the mathematical ability and built on what he intuitively understood about the nature of electricity and magnetism specifically, even though that was not his initial focus. So he was born in 1791, the son of a blacksmith. He and just to put it in perspective, Isaac Newton died in 1727. So this is quite a few decades after Isaac Newton. So by this time, people knew about the theory of gravity, about action and reaction, acceleration, calculus. This was all part of science now, established science. But at this point, there were a lot of different ideas and different theories about things like optics, electricity, the different forms of electricity. There were electricity, static electricity. Then there were electricity that you could get from batteries, animal electricity, magnetic electricity, optics. These were all thought to be different theories. And Faraday was the central figure who contributed to unifying all that into a single theory that we know today as electromagnetism. So he started life as a boy, and he got his first apprenticeship as a bookbinder. So for a very long time in the history of Western civilization, the way the path for a young man was you either go into the church, which was the university of the time, or you get into the apprenticeship journeyman craftsman master craftsman um, um, type of career. Now, he started as an apprentice for a bookbinder and a bookseller, um, and he. So this is where he um, started to teach himself by reading. And one of the things he was very interested in was chemistry. So he got a patron to sponsor tickets for lectures of one of the famous chemists, Humphrey Davy, and he attended these lectures. And eventually, he he bound, because he's a book, works at the bookbinder. He bound his notes as a 300-page book and sent it to Humphrey Davy. Now, Humphrey Davy thanked him for the book, and a while later, Davy damaged his eyesight in a chemical experiment, and he appointed Faraday as an assistant so that Faraday can do the experiments for him. So this is how Faraday got into science, because he started life as the son of a blacksmith and then into the bookbinder business. So as Humphrey's assistant, he came into contact with, because he traveled with Humphrey. Humphrey was quite high up in the Royal Society. So he traveled with him, met a lot of people in science, and he became very interested in chemistry. Did a lot of work in chemistry. For instance, he discovered benzene. He discovered the laws of electrolysis. His work on liquefying gases demonstrated that gases were simply liquids with a low boiling point. So he did a lot of work in chemistry, but and quite a bit of his life was spent on that. But it's really when he became interested in electricity and magnetism that he did some really fundamental work. So he always had the idea that because there seemed to be a link between magnetism and electricity. It seemed like magnetism was the shadow of electricity, because if you could induce magnetism with a coil, and it was said that he walked around with a coil in his pocket. He had a coil, and he had um, a piece of magnetized metal bar, and he walked around with that in his pocket. And he had this intuitive sense, because if you think of what the thought of the time was, Newton published his theory of gravity, and Newton talked about action at a distance, but there was no explanation of what was in between the the matter that has mass and the other matter that has mass, and they are attracting each other. So it's an action, a force at a distance, but there was no explanation or thought of what's in between. But Faraday always had this thought that because when he plays with magnets and iron filings, you can see the lines. You can see it looks like lines. And he had this field idea of space that and the concept of a field is actually surprisingly simple. It's simply that at every point in three-dimensional space, there's a value and a direction. It's like small arrows. And the strength of the value is the length of the arrow, and the direction, the line is the direction of the arrow. And he had this intuitive understanding of what is between the two bodies. And this is what what in his mind, he's trying to solve this, because there seemed to be a link between electricity and magnetism. But what he discovered was that when the magnetism appears when there is change, it doesn't appear with direct current. There has to be change, and then magnetism appears. So he discovered that he could produce electricity by simply moving a magnet in and out of a coil. And he built two devices that produce electromagnetic rotation. So this was sort of the first electric engine, but of course it was now very primitive. And when he published this, um, he did not acknowledge his work with his mentor, Davy. And this strained their relationship to the point where that relationship suffered, and he, for the next, I think, 7 years, he did not work on electricity again. He went over to optics. But I just want to pause at this this point here, and this is that we have norms in Western civilization, and so this was now I don't know the detail of what happened here, but this is an example of where there are norms of how you should behave with your superior, with your apprentice, and it seemed like he overstepped, and there were consequences for that. Now, today, a mentorship, um, I feel anger when I hear that word today, because it has been perverted by anti-whiteism to mean something totally different. Today, when this mentorship means you must the diversity hire is going to be trained by his diversity fire. This is what mentorship means in South Africa and all over the West. White business owners are being forced to white erase their workforces, knowing that they are denying their own people their future lives for their birth. We see white taxpayers who stand by and watch how the fruit of their labor funds the lives of these intruders who are preying on their children. And so all of this is psychological abuse. Anti-whiteism is the worst psychological abuse of all time. And no one talks about that aspect of anti-whiteism because we have been so dehumanized. So I just wanted to pause at the term mentor, because it has such negative connotations for me personally. But in those days, it was not at all like that. Um, it was part of the path that you took when you stepped um, into um, the work environment. So after Davy died, Faraday went back to electromagnetism, and he discovered electromagnetic induction. And he believed all the different differences between these different types of electricities were just illusory. They were all the same: static electricity, battery, animal, magnetic electricity were all the same. So, but what was interesting to me and what I didn't know, and because I knew about the induction, but he discovered that because that period where he didn't work on electricity, he worked on optics. When he came back to electromagnetism, he discovered that the plane polarization of linearly polarized light can be rotated by a magnetic field. So think about if you have polarized glasses, then the light that bounces off the snow or bounces off the water is plane polarized. So your glasses is also plane polarized, but vertically, and the light coming in. So your glasses filter out the horizontally polarized light. Now, what Faraday discovered is you can change the angle of that polarization with a magnetic force. Um, and he said, um, I have at last succeeded in illuminating a magnetic curve or line of force and in magnetizing a ray of light. So this was amazing. And then, of course, his Faraday cage, which he discovered that the electrical field inside an enclosed piece of metal is zero. And later that was mathematically proven by one of the mathematicians by doing calculus on the equations that fell out of work that he did. Because he didn't have the mathematics to formalize his ideas. And later, James Clerk Maxwell did that. He one of the Maxwell equations comes directly from work that Faraday did on electromagnetism. But the Faraday cage, so what he discovered was you don't need foil. You don't need your little tinfoil hat. You just need wire that so that the holes in your cage has to be smaller than the wavelength of radiation that you want to stop. So you don't need tinfoil, you just need a wire cage, and then it will, that frequency, any light that has a wavelength um, um, larger or um, larger than that hole, this is it won't pass through that. If you look at the microwave door, it has you can see the pattern. So that's a Faraday cage. Your microwave has a Faraday cage to protect you from the microwave radiation. So that is it from Faraday. And what I like about this is he had a serious debilitating deficiency with regards to physical science, but he still managed to contribute to the most theoretical part of physics. And that just shows you never give up. You can do amazing things, and you only know what you can do if you try it. Never tell yourself um, you're not good enough to do something before you try it. Of course, when you find out, because not all of us can do all things, then yes, go and try something else. But this is something that, as white men who grew up as boys, we are told from the time that we start to process images and text, we are told that we are less. We are less than anyone else. We are less manly. We are less intelligent. We are less agile. We are not as strong. We are less everything. This is the anti-white narrative. And this goes into your soul. And um, you need to realize that everything around us was created by men who look like you. You are in the anti-white narrative in Hollywood movies. You are never the engineer, you are never the doctor, never the mathematician or the computer genius. But in reality, those disciplines were created by men who look like you. So always remember where you come from The blood of Newton and Da Vinci flows in your veins. There's nothing that you have to shy away from. And this is the message of Faraday for me. He couldn't do mathematics. He didn't let that stop him. It limited him. He knew it limited him. But he did what he could, and his ideas of how electricity and magnetism worked, because he intuitively understood that electricity causes an electrical field around the wire that travels into space. He intuitively understood that there was a relationship between the magnetic field and the electric field. And Maxwell built on that and formalized it into the four Maxwell equations that became electromagnetic theory. So great stuff from Faraday. I only knew about the Faraday cage, but I mean, was amazing. The polarization. I must find out how I can practically, because I have glasses that are polarized. Yes, but that's interesting. I didn't expect that. So that's it for Faraday. Pio Spirit, any comments?
Yeah. So when you were talking about this, I was thinking about these these gizmos that we had installed in our bathrooms here in the sinks, and when we were having the house built, it was one of those extras that you could pay extra for. So instead of turning a knob or moving a handle, you set the handle where you want it, and then you touch the metal of the water spout, and the water comes out. And every time we have people over, I have to explain to them how the sink in the bathroom works, because they go in and they come out and they go, your sink doesn't work. And it's like, no, it really does work. You just have to, it has this odd thing. And so the way that it works is it's through the electricity from your body. And I've gotten to the point now where I play with it, and I can actually like throw my finger at the handle, the metal handle, and not actually touch it, but just like throw the electric energy at it, and it'll turn the water on. It's really cool. It's a neat thing. I bet Faraday would really like it. So I just thought I'd share that odd little thing that we have in our house here, and I'm just wondering if it's part of the stuff that he invented.
Yeah. We don't have that here. I wonder if I can start an import business. Tree Godfather.
Once again, another excellent pick for Man of the West. Hans, as an electrical engineer most of my life, I made quite a living off of continuing a lot of his work, you might say. Those of us who tinker with electronics, of course, are familiar with capacitors, and we measure capacitors and their capacity in farad, which of course comes from Mr. Faraday. I think 1 farad is what, 1 coulomb with a 1 volt difference, something like that. But yeah, so to Biospirit's point, yeah, those faucets work just by detecting that difference in potential from your presence. You're right. You don't actually have to touch it. You just have to get close enough to create a difference in potential. Fascinating stuff. And again, proving that you don't have to be extremely professionally educated. You don't have to come from a rich family. He certainly didn't. You just have to have the will. The blood of all these amazing, as Hans put it, the blood of all these amazing Westmen runs in all of us, but it runs only in us. This is our biospirit.
Yes, I wonder because I I confess that I don't exactly understand how this touch work, the physical principles involved, but I assume it's something to do with that. Um, and amazing that you get you get gloves now that you still the touch still works if you put on the gloves. So I wonder how that works. Julia.
Well, I am familiar with him, of course, as a chemist. So, and electromagnetism has always been my favorite part of physics as well. So, but I learned some new things. So that was cool. Great pick. Um, yeah, a huge fan of his. And regarding Faraday cages, if they're okay, so I'm gonna get a little conspiratorial here. There's this guy. His name on here is Sun Weatherman. The each of those words are capitalized at Sun Weatherman, and he believes that every 12,000 years there is a micronova, so like a uh, a mini supernova um, that our sun does, and that induces a 90-degree pole shift. And yeah, Faraday cage is not going to cut it for a solar micronova. You need like a really hardcore Faraday cage, and it needs to be really deep underground. And you also need to probably be in like the right area. So yeah, just regarding that, you want more than just a standard Faraday cage for certain even a really strong geomagnetic storm. Uh, there are certain types of solar activities where a Faraday cage is not going to cut it. Not the standard types of Faraday cages. That is.
So there are people who say that there's going to be the magnetic field of the Earth is going to flip like it flipped in the past.
So yeah, it's connected to that. So the Earth's magnetosphere has been losing field strength since the Carrington event, and the it's also been moving the where the actual poles are, um, and at an accelerated rate. But yeah, my understanding is what is going to happen is the actual crust is going to rotate uh, on top of the low. Oh God, it's I always forget what it stands for, but the low velocity zone, which can become basically like liquid, liquefied when enough energy. This is theoretical, of course, but Sun Weatherman, i.e., Ben Davidson, theorizes that it could become liquefied if it is energized enough by something like a solar micronova, and then the weight of the ice caps will cause that shifting.
Okay. Yeah. Fortunately, we have gyro compasses now, so we're not we're not reliant on magnetic compass. We also have GPS, of course. So otherwise, I don't think the magnetosphere. Maybe we will get southern lights now in South Africa. Um, and the northern lights will disappear, and we will have the beautiful videos of sunsets. um, this is not related, but it reminds me of that. We did have a space where we talked about Captain Cook and navigation on the ocean. And now, of course, today we have GPS. But I remember, you see, I'm a programmer, and this is just one more demonstration that programmers can break anything. So this squadron of F-22 air superiority fighters, the best state-of-the-art technology. So they are flying in an exercise over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, and they fly over the international date line. And what's happening to the software? Well, the navigation software crashed because they're on GPS. And now suddenly they are in another time zone, and the stuff crashed. Fortunately, they were able to navigate back to the ship by eye, because you can imagine on the ocean how difficult that is. But fortunately, and this is another thing, if you just come into Western civilization and you just know how to press the button, you have no deep understanding of, you know, where north and east is, how to navigate by using the sun. You will just be lost at sea. You will just be another statistic. But obviously, there were men of the West there who, instead of panicking and chimping out, they said, okay, let's go into problem solving mode. Some dumb programmer, probably in India, introduced this bug, and we have to work around it now. But we still have a sun that is shining, so let's figure this out. And they got back to the ship. So I just had to put this one thing in the Jumbotron, because this was just such a victory. This is probably the most that the word anti-white was in a Fox News segment in the history of Fox News. um, and the fact that it came from a non-white person is an absolute scandal. It's an absolute. Um, it is just. It's scandalous. Fox News is wall-to-wall white people with the token non-whites on their show, and the first one to point out anti-whiteism and how it's useless if you don't name the victimization anti-white, and he's not even white. And this is so typical of white guilt. White people don't see their position as legitimate unless a non-white person supports it. So hopefully now, those males, white males at Fox News, hopefully their little thingies will grow to the size of peas instead of what it was now, which was pincushion size. And now they will start to use this new term that they already knew about. That this, and I mean, we can celebrate this non-white guy, because he did what it's not in his best interest to do this. He's not going to get celebrated for doing this. He's probably going to face consequences. So yes, we celebrate people who do good things for white well-being, which this man did, and we want to see more of this. But we also want white men to step up and stop being fearful. This is moral. This person has a moral position. He's not reaching back into history and playing the villain. this is absolutely what we need. We need more of this, and this was just beautiful to see, glorious. I love it. And that I know Jason is probably going to talk about this, but I just had to put that in there because this was just too good to ignore. Now, I'm going to put in the story of the superintendent, and I think you probably know what that is about. But this was another thing that was just absolutely scandalous. But I actually want to put the one that got me going. So there's this superintendent. He um, he was. It's a non-white person, and his name. Let me just put it in the jumbotron. Oh, Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to briefly say that regarding a non-white supporting us fighting ending anti-whiteism, it is actually in his own best interest because in the end everyone benefits from white well-being. So if he's a very far-sighted and intelligent person to see that as well as moral.
That's a great point. Yes, thanks, Julia, for correcting me because yes, that's of course it's the only moral position, but it's also in his long term best interest. Um, absolutely, I agree. Okay, I shared it. Let me just see. Does it appear? Yes. Okay. So this man, um, he now this is just um, this is just a failure in multiple dimensions because um, this man he wasn't even a legal citizen. Um, he didn't even produce documentation for his claimed credentials. Though there was um, he was illegal in the country. There was a deportation order. Um, he had a rap sheet, um, and these women who stands behind him, they appointed him um, in charge of the largest public school district in Iowa with a six-figure salary. And he never had to produce documentation for his credentials. Think about that. Think about how the anti-white narrative tells us that the West is so difficult for non-whites. That's fiction. The red carpet is rolled out for them. They just show up. They show up with a rap sheet, with no credentials, with no um, not even a passport, and he gets the job because he's large and he's black. Um, yes, and so it's white erasure. Those women, every single one of them is anti-white, and they probably cover the spectrum of all races. They're all anti-white. Anti-whiteism is a multiracial coalition. And this would have been a hush crime, but only for the fact that the Trump regime is calling these things out. But in the Biden regime, this would not even, we would not even know about this. It's because ICE published the deportation order of this guy. So he just had a nice free ride. The free ride is now over. But how many of this this little tableau, how many of them are replaying right now, not only in the US but everywhere? In comes a man, and I mean, it's just a massive failure on multiple dimensions. The fact that he, and think about what a white male must do to get a six-figure salary. You There's no place where you can just show up and earn that kind of money. Fire spirit.
Yeah, this reminds me, there was another story a little while back. It was a non-white guy who was in um, again, it was an education position like this, very, very high up. And it turned out that he couldn't even read. And it was just like, it was so appalling that he was in charge of the education department. And he wouldn't even back down about it. He wouldn't he just like wore it as a badge of honor or something. And as you said, how did he even get into that position? You would think that there would have had to have been an interview or a test or something. How could someone even get work their way up into a credentialing system or whatever, other than just getting passed through, being told that oh, you're wonderful every time you open your mouth, even though you can't read and write. So I think he got caught out because he had to do something on the spot and in a meeting, and it became apparent that he couldn't read or write. So here we are in the West. This is this is the West going down the tubes because of anti-whiteism. Yeah.
Bias spirit. Did you see his acceptance speech? The start. He says something like, "I stand here before you, filled with gratification." I'm sure you do. But I think the horrible thing is, it's probably not even him who wrote that speech. That speech went through 3 DEI hires that reviewed that speech, and it passed only for him to yeah, say that live on. Amazing. I mean, six-figure salary, superintendent of the largest school district. This is anti-whiteism. This is white erasure. Three Godfather.
Over $320,000 a year for that guy. How many white men did they pass over deliberately, so they could go and find this anti-white hire? 100, 1,000? It's mind-boggling. So a white man who could have gotten this position, actually done the job, maybe got married. If he was married, he could have had children, had a family, supported a family, got a house. All those things robbed from us in our system that we created. These schools exist because they're an expression of our biospirit. They didn't just magically appear out of thin air. They passed over potentially hundreds of white men to find this anti-white POS with faked credentials, if he had any at all. How many rules did they break to deliberately hire this piece of shit? It's just innumerable. That is the depth of anti-whiteism. This is how much they hate you. They hate you so much that they will pass over qualified white men to hire utterly unqualified, illegal criminals to do a job that pays an amazing amount.
That's 300,000. Wow. That's that's a salary that most of us will never get close to. Julia,
It just reminds me of, I don't remember which country it was, but r- the girl who got charged for using mace on her attacker while her attacker wasn't charged at all. And yeah, of course, these people are always check documents for white men, but they're wouldn't dare to check documents for non-whites because that might be racist. So yeah, of course, it always appeals to that part of anti-whiteism, and I myself have experienced that when Arabs tried to assault me or semi-assaulted me. Fortunately, not too badly, but uh, yeah, and they were immediately let go, and I and my male friend were grilled for hours, and they looked for any reason to try to pin a crime on us, and they didn't even look at the IDs that which they didn't even have of the non-white men. They're just like, oh, you guys can go. Even though onlookers had seen them harassing us. But yeah, it just this is deep. Uh, yeah, obviously anti-white fear of being called racist drives people to create to do absolutely crazy things.
reflame.
I guess we should never underestimate the power that I suppose peer pressure has on some people, because that at the end of the day is what it comes down to, right? Um, in regards to what pre-father said, it's like how many white men did they go over? Well, think about it this way: if you can read or write, you qualify over that anti-white that was put in that position. So what is that? Like all of us? Any single white man that can read or write qualifies over whomever that guy was. Simple as. And it is something that over the years I have always tried to bring up to people, but yeah, for whatever reason, I have not witnessed myself being particularly successful in this. And I is it because it's about money? I do not know. But if you look at politics, uh, like that cackling loon from before President Trump got elected, or like the other one, the stumbling all over the place and getting real weird around children and around yeah, women and what have you, to put it mildly. Pardon me. Uh, I can't. It's like that is the sort of stuff that makes me, for example, wonder why I am cleaning floors for a living, so to speak. Why I am mowing a lawn for a living, so to speak. It's like when you look at any of that, it is an absolute affront. All the the wealth that we accumulate, by breaking our backs, having a sweat on our foreheads from morning till evening, and what have you. All of that goes to this sort of stupidity, just blunt stupidity, madness. I even would say evil, straight up evil, and yeah, I'm just amazed that more people aren't talking about this in general. The whole, like, what was this guy's annual pay? Like 300,000, you said? It's like, pardon me, that's beyond, that's beyond of something like a man who cannot even get close to that. No, $300,000 or what have you, or if it was euros, there are people who pay that off their entire lives in exchange for a doghouse, right? To live in, covered in mold that needs repairs every other week or whatever it's going to be. While these types, you know, for just out of sheer spite towards all the rest of us, they like flippantly, can get a new villa here, a villa in Spain, a villa in Morocco, a castle in Germany, the most flashy cars that one can wish for. Now, personally, I'm not really interested in that sort of thing, but you get what I'm not talking about, or maybe even more, a bit more relevant, perhaps. It's like they can afford their healthcare with ease. They can afford the best possible foods you can have. They can afford healthy clothing that isn't made from recycled garbage and plastic. They can have shoes that are perfectly fitted for their feet. Daily things that would be really nice to have. Daily things that should, in my opinion, be a norm in the West. Because we can, if you look at what we're capable of, that is totally a possibility, right? And for doing half, if even that, of the work hours that we now do, uh, how many people that slave their asses through the day, and their health just keeps deteriorating. That little money they then keep after the taxes and who knows what else, getting spat on by their bosses half of the time, for not doing enough or whatever it's going to be. How many people are barely seeing their children at all, right? They're not even knowing their children because they see each other like what, an hour a day, 2 hours a day tops. I've seen it, I've lived it, like, this is not strange or new to anyone else. But then you look at that sort of stuff, like that sort of madness, that sort of evil, and we're just supposed to sit there and take it, or people are simply not talking about it. It's absolutely ridiculous. uh Also, while these same types from their planes, as they're flying over our heads, uh, shout down at us and tell us that we need to, be more considerate towards nature, or be more considerate toward, and we should but be more considerate towards just about anything that exists except ourselves. The sheer affront of that in and of itself, the sheer humiliation in that, in a certain sense, even, and this pointless hurting, this needless hurting. It's it goes, yeah. When you see all of that, is it the most average, you know, low IQ, even white guy who at the very least can write or read, or can have at least somewhat of a decent conversation, even if it's not going to be particularly enlightening, qualify over the creatures that are right now swimming in the wealth that we accumulate? For us to, keel over whenever, completely be forgotten, and these types, their names are stamped into history forever. Well, for as long as history is still being recorded, I suppose. But you get the idea. And yeah, it's like, I do not know if there are better methods to address this to people. Maybe this is something I would say that deserves a bit more awareness too, to be able to go out to the average Joe and say, hey, did you know that you actually deserve $300,000 a year if you compare yourself to this, this analphabetic twit, and just see what happens? Wouldn't that evoke a bit of rage? I think would be it should invoke a bit of righteous fury. And yeah, those responsible should definitely be held accountable for that. No mistake about it. I'll add a little extra to that as well, is that there are so many who have flooded into the West and they've just sucked us dry of our own wealth while spitting at us and whatever it's going to be. I'm definitely standing by, even if individually it's difficult to hold them accountable. The governments from the countries these people come from, it's like at some point they're going to be approached and there's going to be a big fat bill and it's going to be presented to them that they have to pay off. That's what needs to happen as well. And anyways, that's where my mind is at the very least, and it needs more talking about, I would say, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah, the this is why we say that in an environment, in an anti-white society where white erasure is the preferred outcome of every anti-white institution entity, y- you cannot count. You cannot count on the the relative competency of non-whites because of the anti-white discrimination inherent in white erasure. But more than that, you cannot even count on competency in whites because, as we've discussed before, white erasure destroys the culture of excellence. Because what happens in the psychology of the people that are in the institution is that Western standards of merit is a threat to the existence of these collateral beneficiaries of anti-whiteism. So that's actively undermined. This is why you'll see more and more. Now, you may not um, see that as starkly in the West as we see it in South Africa, but it's very apparent in South Africa that even though I would say on average, if you get a white person to help you, you get a better experience. But it's shocking how even the competency of the white people is degraded. And you can think why that happens. The moment HR, the white erasure gets to HR, those people are going to actively undermine the standards of merit used to bring new people into the institution. So they will not select, if they do select a white male, it will not be the one who's going to force everyone to pull up their socks. They are going to choose the one who is most obeisant and most compliant, most anti-white. This is why you see in the UK how many of those white policemen are vehemently anti-white. I've seen a video today where this white policeman grabs a St. George's flag out of the hands of a white girl and stuffs it into his jacket. So no, yes. So uh, and the other thing I want to comment on, that incompetent non-white intruder who gets this superintendent position, who put him there? It's this whole collection of women who are in the system, and they are all incompetent. They put that guy there, so they are either unable to assess competence, which means they are themselves incompetent, or they are just vehemently anti-white. They just want someone who's not white. And I don't know, that's even worse. So everyone has to go. But of course, we can't make that happen. What we can make happen is we can we can teach our brothers and sisters how to talk about this in a moral way. And the fact of the matter is, this is, first of all, it's a symptom of anti-whiteism. Um, it's the white erasure of our Western norms and standards, our standards of merit, and it's systemic. It's not only that person who's incompetent, the superintendent. It's everyone around him, everyone that put him there. The whole thing is incompetent, and that incompetence doesn't fall out of the sky. The incompetence is there because of the white erasure of our norms, our Western norms. Tree Godfather.
Yeah, you'll see I threw up in the Jumbotron a couple of posts. One's from several years ago. It was this anti-white, non-white, fake sign language interpreter lady. Again, that's an injury to Western kind, both in taking a position that could have been filled by a white person, but with her fake mumbo jumbo, how many people could have been injured if that had been a really important press conference where vital information needed to be passed along? People who can't hear would not have gotten that information. And I'll delete these if you like afterwards. And the other post was just from last year. 700 Nigerian nurses working in the NHS in the UK, all with fake documents. Not a single one of them actually qualified to do the job. So we have the injury of the job taken that should have been taken by a white person. And of course, the medical injury that undoubtedly happened many times with these unqualified imported anti-whites. We need to see the injury to us that they are. And the problem with so many vagues is they don't see how that's injurious to us as a people. But these are absolutely injurious to us. And we need to own that. You mentioned sometimes often the white people that you find in these jobs, in these positions, like the ones that hired that useless anti-white quote unquote superintendent, they're there because they're deferential to anti-whiteism. They knew what they were doing. I don't buy. I won't give them the credit of just being ignorant. They knew what they were doing and did it deliberately. And I'll send it back.
Yes, and I must say, we had an incident here of the exact same sign language hoax, where this guy was just he was just enjoying himself, and people were calling in and saying, "This is nonsense. He's not signing. He's not signing. He's doing his own thing." And this is. Of course, first of all, it's a white erasure of your norms. It's anti-whiteism because they don't apply the standards consistently. But there's also an aspect of a different biospirit because they are absolutely shameless, absolutely shameless. Can you imagine a white person going up there and basically destroying his own name? How that person will be socially lynched. I mean, it won't be a joke. It will be, it will be devastating. And my brother-in-law, he has to guide master's degree students to successfully complete their dissertations in physics. And he tells me it's incredible, these non-white students, how shameless they are. Um, they are getting caught repeatedly about cheating, and he just rolls. Then it's they are collectively shamed because in the department this is called out, and exactly what happened and what this student did, and it doesn't affect them. They just do it again. Um, they sit there and he doesn't, he says it's incredible to watch that. You would think that this is a case for suicide watch, if it was a white student. Doesn't affect them. Different biospirit. Doesn't care, not at all. New Hampshire Patriot.
Thank you for the microphone. Hello and good afternoon, or good evening, good morning, wherever everybody's at. It's a beautiful day here in New Hampshire, and it's another beautiful day for being white. I want to touch on the subject of the Minnesota individual. I keep going back to empathy, and and it's a fundamental key in our demise. That is what is happening. We are doing it to ourselves, and this is another example. We were empathetic after the 1790 Naturalization Act here in the United States. I'm kind of basing this just on the United States only because I'm biased. I live here. As far as the UK, South Africa, and other continents and countries, I'm not quite familiar with your guys' policies. Continued. After the 1790 Naturalization Act, up to two-thirds of the immigrants or the people that cultivated to America from other countries left because they could not withstand the harsh terrain, the work, the ethics, what it took, right? And then we started to excel towards the Hart Sellers Act, but there was another act prior to that. I'm trying to dictate the year, but it was anywhere in between the Great Depression, because they saw that because so many of our brothers and sisters were dying over in these wars that we had no part in being. But that's a subject for another day. Excuse the background noise. I'm in my backyard enjoying this weather. That's why I said that. So they started bringing over these immigrants because of our empathy. Because we were supposedly displacing these people, and we wanted to share what we had, what we built, what we created, our government, our systems, our biospirit, our white well-being. But that is what is killing us. That is exactly what is killing us. From then, we had to change our education system. We had to get interpreters. We had to change our judicial system. We had to change everything to dumb down our own people. Which I don't know. I'm pretty sure most of us in here are well educated. I know we're well spoken. I'm pretty sure we're well over a 120 IQ minimum in this room. But I want some of us to even take a look at some of their tests for a sixth grader back in 1840. And I will tell you, most of us will fail. And we're of a high IQ of this society, right? So we had to dumb down our society, and then what that then creates is a dumber generation, right? I believe it was Reagan that said it. Freedom is only one generation away. There was another one that stated about education. I'm gonna have to look it up. They're dumbing down the generations throughout the centuries, the century, and created these now leaders, these now people that are appointing and putting people into positions. This is why I think every position should be an elected position, not a an appointed position. And then you create this. What was his name? Zainab Muhammad. Anybody with the name Muhammad, I don't even know why anybody any foreign ties at all. You must be an American born. I prefer an ethnic American if you're going to serve in politics, and that goes for any other country, right? In China, you will not see an American in the China government. in Australia, you will not see an American in Australian government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are the only country that is free and brave, right? We the people that allow, foreigners to hold a political position of power over our own citizens. I mean, so I don't know whose decision it was. I wish I can go back in time and have a conversation. And I don't like to have those kind of conversations. But I think we need to just eliminate our empathy, stop our sympathy, make them feel uncomfortable, because this is our land. We created it. This is ours, our land.
Hank,
I really like what he said just now, because I've been thinking about this for a while, like how they always say, this whole garbage about, oh, you stole the land, But I'm thinking, but if you think about it, it's like what they're basically saying. The people that say that, most of the time, they're not even from the Indian tribes that were here on the land. I know Hispanics going to say something about, oh, you stole the land, but it's like you guys weren't even related. Like, you're not direct descendants from the tribes that were here first. So while you're over here talking about, oh, we stole the land, it's like you guys didn't even get along with the tribes that were here. The tribes that were on this land before white people showed up, they were scared of you Mexicans. You guys were Aztecs, and also half your ancestors were from Spain. So it's like you're using what happened to someone else's ancestors as some sort of excuse to just freeload off of a country and a civilization built by someone else. So it's like you're just trying to capitalize on someone else's historical grievances. But yeah, I mean, they can't build the city. I don't know. It's so stupid. All these, they make it seem like any other race except white people built America. And you just think about it. Okay, where else do you see civilization like this? Where else? Because apparently, how is it that they built America and we didn't do anything, but they couldn't build it in their own country, And so obviously, we built the civilization. There was so that's I'm following up. What's his name? New Hampshire, the guy who was speaking just before me. Well, anyway, what was his name?
New Hampshire Patriot.
All right, New Hampshire Patriot. Yeah. That's, I wanted to follow up on what you said because you hit close to home. Especially me, I'm from California, so I mean, I'm surrounded by Mexicans. Yeah. Oh, my favorite people. They're so, none of them are anti-white at all. They're so great. They're such high IQ people. They have so much potential. Where would we be without the Mexicans? Apparently, the ones that come here are the rejects. They're not even the ones that Mexico wanted. You go to Mexico, apparently, from what I hear when I talk about this with people, Mexico is more nice to white people than the Mexicans here in America are. And probably most likely because the Mexicans in Mexico are on the probably higher IQ. We're basically getting Mexico's rejects. And they're over here talking about they built this country. You guys didn't even build your own country that you came from. But there was one thing there was a video Jason Kuhn was talking about the motivation of an anti-white. I was trying to find the video today, but I couldn't find it. If we want to talk about the motivation of anti-whites, they're like plunder and lust and jealousy and envy and all that. I'm definitely interested to see if we have a conversation about that. But Also, one thing I think you were talking about empathy and our sympathy basically used against us. I think one of our biggest problems, and I said this before, and I'm gonna say it for sure, we're gullible as hell. Like we as white people, we're like penguins. Like penguins evolved in a place with no natural predators, so naturally they're trusting. White people evolved in the ice age, so our natural predator was the cold, and we learned to work together. So naturally, us being gullible and trusting, having so many like 10,000 years working together with people, we just the anti-whites, they just convinced us, oh yeah, you can work together with every other race too. No, you can't, you know. So I think because like the envy and jealousy, I know China's definitely got people who are envious and jealous of them, but they don't take shit from people who are anti-Chinese. You know, they don't fall for it and be gullible. It's only whites who fall for the words of what our haters say. So that's my thoughts. That's what I wanted to say.
So I would just respond with whites are trusting. Well, there was a poll on Twitter that said, what asked white females would they rather trust a bear or a male, and then the picture is of a white male, and a lot of them said they would rather trust the bear. So I agree that we are trusting. It's by spiritual that honesty is a Western value, and we project that value, and we think this anti-white meme pathogen that infected us through the anti-white narrative that that there's one human race, but in fact there's one human species with many races, and we're not all the same. But um, we don't trust white men because in every Hollywood movie, the villain has blue eyes. Um, if you look at that, you go back in time to 1985. I think it was 19, no, not 1985, but somewhere in the 80s, the first Die Hard movie. Who's the traitor? The traitor is the white male colleague of the white female boss. He's the traitor. And this is a pattern. So no, whites are not trusting. They are trusting non-whites. They don't trust whites. And it's not because of our biospiritual nature. It's because of these anti-white meme pathogens that we are infected with in the anti-white narrative. So what happened in in the case of um, this person who achieved the position of superintendent, he just sails through because the normal standards doesn't apply to him because he's not white. But I also wanted to comment on the that you mentioned empathy and you mentioned stolen land. These so there are two main vectors of anti-white attack. Um, you can categorize anti-white attacks in two broad categories. The one is where they frame our victimization as well-being for someone else, and this taps into our morality. Um, and then the other category is where they frame our victimization as retributive justice against Western kind. So this it's nice that we're talking about both here because it covers both categories. The reparations anti-white narrative falls into the retributive justice category, and the suicidal empathy where all anti-whites need to do is show a photo of a crying non-white child, and then everyone's arms go open. Let's welcome them in. This is the other category where they frame our victimization as well-being for someone else. Um, And this one defense works against both categories. And this is simply saying that um, when the conclusion is that we must be victimized for our birth, then your pretexts don't matter. It's anti-white and must be rejected. So in the case of empathy, um, yes, we don't want people to suffer, but when you import these intruders, non-white intruders, into Western civilization, this is white erasure. White erasure harms the well-being of white people in many different dimensions. The psychological, spiritual, physical, financial well-being of white people is harmed. So this is anti-white. In the case of reparations, um, again, when you try to justify victimizing white taxpayers today for imaginary or imagined grievances committed by other whites in the past, that is anti-white because what qualifies white people today for victimization is not anything that they were responsible for. It's the way they were born. So in that way, that one defense covers both categories, and I haven't found an instance um, where that is not the best defense. But let's go to uh, apologies if I prioritize incorrectly, but I think it's New Hampshire Patriot.
Yes, thank you for the mic again. Yes, Hans, I definitely agree with you on your statement. I know your account got nuked. Hank, yes, another reference. I was born and raised in Stockton, California. As a matter of fact, I got out of there quickly, and my biggest advice to you would be I left in '99. I was born and raised I was born the last year of Gen X. Well, year before last, '79. I barely made it, thank God. And I got out of there. So I would strongly advise getting out of there. And I agree with you, Hans, on the empathy, 100%. You trusting, 100%. We're trusting. We take a man for his word. That's always been a thing. You shook a hand, took his man for his word, and that was it. And that's how I do my day to day, and a lot of my inner circle, which is very small and very tight. Nothing needs to be said. No, we barter, we take care of each other, etc. Unwritten contracts, if you will. Which leads me to the tribal part, right? All these other nationalities, races, and ethnicities are easily tribal, but whites aren't. And it's really weird because you have to find like certain individuals that you're always with your guard up, whether it's your an associate or somebody or a friend of a friend or whatever. You're always with your guard up, like you always make sure you vet them, this, that, and this, that. And I understand because I do the same thing. I don't want somebody just coming to my house. This is a security measure. This is my home. This is where I lay my head. uh there is a do not enter sign, etc. But I just wonder, like, how can we reach how can we change this tribal thing that every other ethnicity, nationality, and race has that we don't have, and what are we going to do to change it? And I'll land it there.
That's a very powerful idea, is to switch that, because and think about it. Um, it's the noblest thing to care about your people's well-being. Um, and um, so I think just it will be easy to get someone to agree to that. And then you ask that person, think about why you are uncomfortable when you feel like you want to advocate for the well-being of your people, which is white people, because that's where the evil is, and that is where we need to go and fix things. Because it's easy to agree to abstractions. So an abstraction, like saying it's the noblest thing to care about your people's well-being, that's an abstraction. It's easy to agree to. Now you tell that person, okay, now think about the fact how uncomfortable it feels if you advocate for your people's well-being. And why is that? And the reason why that is because of the social morality of anti-whiteism. And this is the core of the issue we need to fix in our society. Tree Godfather?
Yeah, I have to kind of call Hank out on some comments. I hear IQ argued all day, every day. It is a losing proposition. We are different biospirits, okay? A 60 IQ white guy is still going to produce Western civilization. It may be less complicated, but he's still going to produce Western civilization. A Japanese guy with a 130 IQ is still going to recreate Japanese civilization, not Western civilization. So you cannot couch whether or not we allow somebody into our civilization on their IQ. It's a losing argument. I would still rather be surrounded by 165 IQ white people than 130 IQ Japanese people, because I want to live in Western civilization. So never break the IQ argument. Always ends up being a losing proposition, because then you're opening yourself up to being replaced by somebody, a non-white, somewhere else in the world, who has a higher IQ than you. That's all I want. That's all I had.
That's such a great point, Tree Godfather. I have a personal anecdote because we have a family member in our family. It's a young man. Um, he is, he's in a protected job because he is below standard standard intelligence. Oh, his IQ is below average. Um, and my brother-in-law, he remarked to me that it's the same brother, the nuclear physicist. He said, it's amazing how this young man, um, he has the work ethic and the manners of the best of us, but he's obviously, um, he's obviously mentally incapable to do most things that we take for granted. And um, and I had the definite feeling that if we let that young man into the anti-white society, he will be consumed. He will be uh, he will be destroyed because he won't be able to defend himself against the anti-white morality and the anti-white narrative. But because the family protects him, and this is what would happen if we had Western civilization, is our less capable people will not be vulnerable to the anti-white narrative. And now, but the family is handling this, and it's like you said, this young man is not up to standard, but he's still biospiritually Western in the way he fits into society. He's still a productive member of society. Hank?
Yeah, the IQ argument. I agree with that because it's like, you could still find people of different races who all share the same IQ, but that doesn't. Okay, yeah, they got the same exact IQ on a test, but that's it. You know, there's still what? How many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of difference between them? You know, they're gonna. I think one thing. I'll take Chinese for example. The written language, not Asians in general. Their written language is always through symbols, but white people. Well, it's kind of like that with other people who are not white, but white people, our way of written language is we have symbols that make letters, and then we just combine the symbols to make words. In China, they don't care. They just make like a little symbol, and it's like, that's a word. Next, draw another little symbol. That's another word, So they're basically, it's like kind of we operate with an algorithm for how we read. Them, they just memorize like what 500 words, something like that. And I think it has to do with they are more about efficiency, and white people, we don't really behave that way. It's interesting. But another thing that's weird, I think this sounds kind of like what we were talking about a little earlier, but I got a new point is I feel like white people are almost seen like it's unspoken, but we're almost seen like a luxury to be around. Like we're just luxury people. They act like it's material wealth. Like the cope it's so pathetic. Like when you think about it, right? I remember in elementary school there was this time where we had to do gardening, right? And I got this big bag of potting soil, and people were impressed that I was strong enough to lift it. So I picked this bag up and I dump it over. But there was this other kid, and I could tell he was jealous that people were impressed with my strength. So he goes and he grabs the bag to basically get a little bit of to basically cash in on some credit. So that way he got praise for his strength, quote unquote strength, even though I was the one lifting the bag. He was just kind of grabbing it from the side to like sort of get credit. I feel like that's what it's like. It seems like a childish behavior for the fact that anti-whites they want to attribute our success to some sort of unearned material wealth that somehow we're just magically able to siphon from all the other people in the world, despite the fact they don't create it themselves. And so, yeah, when you say our biospirit, like our mannerisms, politeness, I think these are all just like, I don't even think these are objectively recognizable concepts among the other races. Like, it's almost like, imagine you saw some aliens and they came down and they started like doing a weird ritual. Like maybe they were wiggling their tentacles around like Squidward or something. And then they were saying, oh, yes, this is common courtesy when they translate to English. This is like their way of saying, I really appreciate you. This is how we communicate. It's some form of sign language. That's a completely alien concept to us. It wouldn't make sense. We don't wiggle our fingers to, communicate a sense of common courtesy to each other. We don't do that. We have a different way of displaying common courtesy. And I think for non-whites, their biospirit basically has a different definition of courtesy, if they even have a concept of it. So for us, it's like we're just seen as these like soft people that can be taken advantage of, I think. But it's like I feel like they don't even really realize it's the good behavior in us that they mock, and will say stuff like sometimes apparently on TikTok, Black people will act well behaved and then they'll say this is white people, and they're like joking about it. Like to them this behavior is weird, to us it's, you know, common courtesy, which is like the alien thing. Like, so from their point of view, we might as well be aliens shaking our tentacles at each other, and it makes no sense to them, but to us it's just natural. It makes all the sense in the world to us, just instinctively, because it's part of the biospirit. So I feel like just our way of measuring other races is already wrong. You know, like we talk about life on other planets, how different would it be from us? We need to start discussing life with other humans. You know.
Well, I want to comment on um, same concepts meaning different things in different um, societies. Because if you look at the word like honor, in the West, honor has a very definite connection to honesty, because honor is commitment, and commitment means doing what you committed to. Um, and when you did, at the time that you did it, you meant to do it. Now, if something comes in between, you're going to do your best to deliver on your commitment. But honor is one of those things. I hate it, absolutely hate it, when people use that word for non-white practices like honor killings. That's completely a different thing. It's nothing to do with the Western concept of honor. Um, it's a totally different thing. We must never use honor for those horrible practices. That this is an anti-white attempt to subvert what is a noble concept in our Western moral framework. So yes, they may use the same words, but biospiritually, in their context, those things mean different things. Now, um, there may be commonalities, but it's like that meme curative says. It's not the similarities that make us the same. It's the differences that make us different. Three Godfather,
I think Eindelen was next.
Andelan.
Oh, you're good if you wanted to respond to Hank. I know you guys were kind of having a back and forth. You're good if you want to do that.
Okay, sir. You know, one of the things we hear, Hank, is how we went into these non-white countries and we stole their wealth. I, of course, would point out that there is no such thing as wealth until it's created into something that somebody wants to buy. It was our technology to utilize oil as a lubricant in machinery, as a fuel for engines, that converted what was an annoyance leaking from the ground into something worth money. Diamonds don't have any intrinsic value. They are, you can't eat them, you can't live off them. The only value they have is when they're put to a use, and it was white people that developed the technology to do that. So when these people say that we stole their wealth, that's an anti-white trope. There was no wealth until we created the technology to put those things to use. Always keep that in mind. You mentioned the courtesy, but well, there again, as Hans has pointed out many times, these are not universally held but values. Uh, Courtesy, consent for sex, how we treat animals and children, what animals we consider food. Those are not universally held beliefs. They vary quite widely across different people. And I would point out once again that this is where we get into trouble, as I think you kind of alluded to, when we try to say that one thing is better than another. As Jason would point out, there is no cosmic measuring stick. There is no better culture than another. There is only us preferring to be around our people. And that is a perfectly moral position. Everybody would prefer to be around their own kind, usually. And for us, we are moral for wanting to be surrounded and see our biospirit reflected back at us when we go out in the world. That is a perfectly moral position, and that's why in this community, we don't get into whose culture is better. Everybody thinks their culture is the best. So, just my thoughts on that.
I can um, um, I can testify that because I was a month or two ago, I visited um, my old hometown, and I we had um, we had a reunion, and together with a lot of my schoolmates, and I, I sat in a group, and I told them that um, we um, we find harmony when our environment reflects our internal expression. And this is why white people like being around white people, because we see our biospirit in our surroundings. And one of the women, she was gobsmacked. She said, "This was this was um, what is the word in English? An epiphany to her. It's the first time she thought, because of course she was white guilted her whole life. Why do you want to be with white people? Because in the anti-white narrative, what's the answer? In the anti-white narrative, the answer is you want to be with white people because you really don't want to be with black people because you hate them. This is the answer in the anti-white narrative. But the real answer is you love your own biospirit to be reflected back at you. This is what is happening. And you can see it in other groups. People, um, one time we had not a, was it a bomb drill? I think it was a bomb drill. I can't remember. But it's one of the big banks in the country, 15-story building or something. It's a bomb drill. Everyone must evacuate. Okay. So this is now in the middle of the day. There are thousands of people in this building. We all stream out, and I walk around the corner because I'm looking for my coworkers, and I'm walking in this group of what we call coloreds. Now, colored in South Africa is a designation. It's not a slur. It's what we call it's a legal designation. So I'm walking in between these group of coloreds, and I tell you that feeling of that of I felt very white because they tracked me like these robo guns in science movies, and so they self-selected from different floors in the building to come together as a group of coloreds. People do that. Why do they do that? It's not because they hate whites. They love being amongst their own. So I cracked a joke, everyone smiled, and the tension was broken, and I continued on. I didn't do like conservatives would do, which is hang around, trying to show them that I love them. I moved along and found my people. Um, so there's nothing wrong with that, and that woman, that white woman who had this epiphany. This is something. This is how powerful these concepts are. Um, they get new terms to think with, and this heals them inside because now that white guilt has no power anymore. Once you identify it correctly, Hank.
Yeah, what you said about um, being around, being around whites versus non-whites, and how you can really feel the difference. There's dust on my keyboard. I blew it off. So anyway, it's like they basically, I feel like, and most likely, definitely, the anti-whites knew this, that of course whites are going to naturally feel this way. We're going to naturally feel a sense of belonging among other whites, and they basically said, oh yeah, that's evil. Like, it's funny because I could still picture in kindergarten, you know, I could seriously, I remember so vividly in kindergarten sitting in class. And when was I in kindergarten? Like, well, probably like what, 17 years ago or something. And I just remember them. I'm sitting there trying to think to myself, okay, how do I not see race? You know, because they're saying that not seeing race is the right thing to do. Just see people. Just see people and don't see anything else, you know? And, well, I mean, my experiences from a young age were really conflicting with what the teachers were telling me. So um, we can see how, of course, I ended up here because it didn't work. But I remember one time being a child, right? And this was a time when it was like extremely like uh un it was unignorable. Like I could not even pretend that this didn't mean something. I was in the mall, right? Or I was in Target or Sears or something, and I'm like this little kid. I'm standing with my mom and my sister, and we're just well behaved. I mean, I have misbehaved as a child, but it wasn't a super common thing. I'm sitting there, I'm well behaved. I am exhibiting the white people's concept of what is classified as good behavior. And I'm just kind of standing there. I think we're looking for shoes. And I see this like irritating, annoying, um, like Hispanic mom yelling at her kids and stuff in Spanish. And they're just arguing and yelling at each other in Spanish, all rude, like total like, and I just thought to myself, wow, I really, really do not like you. Like, as a child, I thought to myself, wow, this is not a behavior that I like to be around. Like, how am I, a little kid, me and my sister and my mom, just standing there, good behavior, calm, quiet, and then these obnoxious bastards are just yelling about nothing in Spanish at each other, arguing, and like that scares me because as a child, right, you need to depend on adults. And that's another thing. That's another thing. I think this is what was really scary to me. As a child, you're supposed to depend on adults, right? So many of the adults were Hispanics that didn't even speak English. So my little white ass, getting lost would have been the scariest thing in the world to me. I mean, my mom, she did not tell me that the world was nice. She told me the world was full of child molesters. So as a young like little kid, I was scared to death of getting kidnapped. Top it off with the fact that a significant portion of adults didn't even speak English, and they obviously did not act like white people. They were clearly something else, down to behavior. And they also, I find out in kindergarten, they don't even like white people that much. So I was basically terrified of the world from a young age. I missed the day. I remember the last day that I thought that everybody in the world was like, I don't know, maybe I just reincarnated from the 1950s real quick, because my interpretation of what the world looked like as a child before I got red pilled on all this, before I became aware of race realism as a child, there was a period of time, my first few years, I just kind of assumed everybody was white, and I didn't even really think about the concept of race. And yeah, I guess there was a tiny moment where I felt like I was living in the 50s. And let's hope the future holds an even better, like what Jason said, let's hope the future holds an even better Western kind, where we are not susceptible to this anymore, and this can never happen to us again.
Yes, our children, we need to keep them from environments where they are going to be exposed to that kind of behavior. Yeah, that is absolutely. If I mean, of course, today you're not going to let your child walk home from school in most countries. Um, if you live in a place where you can still do that, that's wonderful. But so there's already a layer of protection that we have to introduce, and that protects our children. But of course, we would like this to be on the civilization level, not having to make your own life a prison, so that you and your children can be safe. Andelin.
Well, I was just going to say, well, one thing Hank said too that made sense to me was how he said that non-whites really kind of compare us to like a luxury to be around, and I kind of agree with that, because they definitely use us like a resource, that's for sure. But I mean, one thing I noticed too about several of these stories you guys posted, they're reported on from all over the place, but the truth is a lot of these things are all going on within the same like 20-mile radius. Like if they're going on, they might look like they're spread out all over the place, but it's really everywhere, especially in these situations where you see like with this superintendent, this non-white foreigner that kind of got in there and basically took over the schools. We spoke before about how the schools operate more like a social safety net distribution center than anything related to education. And of course, the education, it doesn't come first or second. It's all about welfare for people who are either new to the country, or they're brought into the good school districts from ones that have completely failed. And it's basically the mission of these anti-white majority female school boards to elevate the same incompetent failures who oversaw the destruction of their own school districts into positions that are going to do the exact same thing to the ones that are still intact. And it kind of hits close to home for me because, well, my daughter, she has 1 year left at her current school, but it's about to completely transform even more now. They've completely cleared out all of the surrounding wooded area that's been there since before I attended the school. I went to the same school when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, but it's always been this way. Now they cleared it out to build new apartments or some other type of affordable housing for, it's going to be for non-whites. And it's scary to imagine what it's going to look like in a year from now. That's a really effective way that they attack our communities. They single out the functioning majority white school districts, and they redistribute all the resources until it's drained and completely dysfunctional. And the truth is, like I said, all of these stories that you guys basically posted could be happening within the same 20-mile radius. It's that bad that often. And once your school district is declining, that there's nothing to stop it. And whatever safe neighborhoods are left in that surrounding area is right behind. And these people, they know they don't belong, and they're ready to confront you out of jealousy and envy on your Western norms and standards. They want you to feel like the foreigner in your own homeland. And I've had a couple situations. One time I spoke up at a PTA meeting because of the completely unacceptable way the buses run. My daughter, she catches the bus in the morning, and sometimes that bus is really late. She gets picked up in the evening, but sometimes the buses are like an hour and a half or more late, which is completely unacceptable. And I spoke up about it at a PTA meeting. And one thing that happened was before the meeting ever even started, we had to wait like 15, 20 minutes for some of these foreign people that to set up their translators on their phone so they could understand what the conversation even was. And one of the ladies that we were waiting on for like 20, almost 30 minutes to set up her little translator, when I spoke up about the buses, she yelled from across the room. She was like, "At least you all have a bus." It's like, motherfucker, like you could say that, but I mean, sorry for my language, but it's like I said, this kind of hits close to home. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add on that.
So Hank what was talking about the anti-white meme pathogen, white privilege, which is, if you look around you, look at that superintendent, is absolutely the inverse. Because just look, and he's not the only one. Everywhere you look, you see preferential treatment, special privileges, freedom from responsibility for everyone who's non-white. So tell me again about white privilege. We have no privilege in Western civilization. Whites have no privilege. Um, everything all wealth that we earn, we have to fight tooth and nail. So we earned every resource, every rand, every dollar, every cent that we have. We earned twice over, three times over, and we have the right to inherit what our ancestors pass on, and we have the right to pass it on. So no more. There is no such thing as white privilege. That's an anti-white meme pathogen. But there is white erasure. There is anti-whiteism, and it's to the point where it's an alternative definition of being white. Because if it's legal to discriminate against you, you must be white. This is how bad it is in Western civilization today. By spirit.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something that it can seem like such a little thing, but it really isn't. And it's we have a way of greeting each other as Westmen, which is the handshake. And when you greet someone, you put out your hand and you expect them, the other person is going to greet you the same way that you are greeting him, and is going to shake your hand back. And you can read a lot about the person from that interaction, that very simple interaction. And when I was living in Berkeley, the neighborhood I was in started getting a lot of Muslims moving in, and I soon found out that they will not reciprocate a handshake, and it is always couched in these terms of, "Oh, I have a cold. Oh, I'm getting over the flu." This kind of BS kind of stuff. And but it's such an alien thing to us to put out your hand, and a man will not. He refuses to shake your hand, and I could look in their eyes and look in their face, and it was just full of contempt. And this was back before I had any realization about what was going on in the world. And I was like, wow, what is going on with these people? And always the made up story, and the being fake about it, and just being dishonest. And to get back to what others were talking about around these kinds of things, of we don't feel comfortable when there are people in our environment who don't follow our customs, who don't do as the Romans do when they're in Rome. And the more that you get people who either don't speak the language or don't know the customs or refuse to do the customs, they want their own customs in your area, the less you feel at home, the less that you feel comfortable, the less your home is your home. And there is no reason for us to be upset about that. There's no reason for us to feel that there's something lost in those types of situations. And it's completely moral for us to want our people and our customs, and what makes us feel harmonious in the world around us. So I just wanted to say that. I also wanted to mention we're getting we're coming up on the hour when Jason's going to start the show. He just posted the link in Twitter, so I don't know if you want to start wrapping up hands or not. It's your show, but I just wanted to point that out, that we're getting on the time brink there.
Thanks, Biospirit. There's just one extra one I want to talk about quickly. But I also have an anecdote about the handshake, because in South Africa, the blacks, they have a way where they shake your hand, then they grab your hand, they turn the hand and they grab it again. So it's a double handshake. And I, like you said, this is not, for me, it's not a Western norm. So I resist that. And one day, one of our white directors, he greeted me, and then he went for the second move and he grabbed empty air. Then he looks up at me. I looked him in the eyes and I said, I'm white. Anyway, so in the Jumbotron, let me count. Okay, so it is number 5 from the left, or number 4 from the right. It is this non-white woman who tell this white woman how we talked about in the previous space about the licenses, and how it's totally not true that the West is set up for Western kind, because these people, they are not even citizens, and they get licenses. They just walk through everything, and everything is just rolled out for them. Now this woman is talking about how she wants to make it easy for her people to get licenses. So here you see, this is a microcosm of what's happening in entire Western civilization right now. You have white people bending over, non-whites just grabbing what they can. But there's two aspects to this. The one is, of course, she's not white, so she doesn't care about our norms and standards. She just wants her people to have licenses, because to her that's a barrier. The license is, she doesn't think about the function of why do you require a license, And why do we organize society like this? It's a barrier to our people, so that a barrier that keeps them from feasting on this carcass of Western civilization. So that's just a barrier, and she just wants to make that barrier lower and lower. But there's another aspect of this, and this is the fact that she says, this is my people. I want to help my people. And this is a very beautiful thing. The fact that she is part of a people, she sees herself as part of a people, she wants to help her people. Now, of course, it's detrimental to all of us, it harms us. And this is why we say white erasure harms white well-being, even if every intruder is a good person. And by good, I mean good in their definition. Because here, yes, she is. She just wants to be good by the norms of her people and help her own people. And by doing that, she's harming us. And there's no way getting away from. You can't get away from this. Um, no amount of school of making her go to school and teaching her Western norms is going to change this. But the other thing is, the white woman doesn't even flinch. So we talk about the interpretive mandate. Ricky Gervais, he innovated when he implemented, instead of the laugh track, they pan the camera and then you see the expression of the people. And then the expression will usually be a negative expression to tell you that this was now a bad thing that this other character said. Now, there's um, no expression on the white woman's face that this is wrong. This is harming us. It just sails right through. This is completely normal. It's beautiful. It's acceptable. Switch the races around, then you would see that expression on that woman's face. If that's that same white woman, if there's a white woman in front of her that says, um, I want these are my people, and I want to make it easier for them. At the word my people, you would already see that on that white woman's face. This is wrong. We're sailing close to the reef now. Yes, so that was interesting, but I mean, obviously it's bad for us. But there's also a lesson there that this woman is part of a people and we are not, and this is why that white woman doesn't react. Um, so yes, so that's it for today. I'm going to wrap it up with final thoughts. Let's start with a New Hampshire Patriot. Let's skip New Hampshire Patriot. Let's go to Hank.
Oh, all right. Final thoughts. Yeah. The I was just scrolling Twitter a second ago, right? I saw it showed that some of the Palestinians that they're killing are white and they have blue eyes and stuff. So sorry, a motorcycle went by. So we can conclude even that might be an anti-white attack. And the whole thing about our biospirit, I feel like when it comes to the biospirit, I'm wondering, do you think we should have do you think it'll come out like when this concept spreads more and more, we'll start having ways of measuring it, and like having a like all these different categories and measurements for determining the behavior and natural tendencies of other races. Like I think earlier you said something about there's no cosmic measuring stick. Like it's all subjective, you know. Like I mean, me personally, I could, right? And I'm sure all of us could. We could, if we wanted to, we could make the case that whites are the best, but every race could make the case for their people in some way. Um, I mean, my explanation would be down to artwork. I would say that would be the explanation is you look at the artwork because it's interesting. You look at like Middle Eastern artwork and architecture, it's a lot more geometric, whereas white artwork is more organic. That's why so many of our sculptures reflect, um, you know, like they have leaves and water and all kinds of things are ingrained in, or even if you just go into like a doctor's office and you see like the wooden desks and chairs and stuff, they're oftentimes they got these antiques with like gold leaf and carvings in the wood and everything, and it's just gorgeous. That's a white biospirit, you know? And I think that's kind of unique because you don't really see that. You can tell when it's different, um, like in Japan, right? Usually, or no, not just Japan, just in Asia in general, their decorations on their tables and stuff will be like dragons and fish and animals and things. And yeah, they got a lot of like animals with scales, you know, whereas ours is a bit like organic, like plant like, and mammals. We don't often put fish in things, but Asians, they do that. So that's already a difference in biospirit. You know what I mean? They got dragons and snakes and fish, and us, we got like leaves and plants, horses, more organic, and mammals. So I think that right there is already a starting point for measuring the biospirit. So thanks for your attention.
I would say that there's a difference between aesthetics and um, harmonizing with something. So, I mean, other races create beautiful things, but when you stand in the Parthenon, or you stand in the Cathedral of Cologne, or in the Sistine Chapel, it's not only aesthetically beautiful, it harmonizes with you because this is an expression of your biospirit. I talked before about how Renaissance architects worked with light and the patterns that they use. There's something special about the way white people appreciate natural light, I believe. So yes, they absolutely, a Chinese dragon is beautiful, but it's totally different to a Norwegian dragon. The two things look, you get a different feeling, and that's the biospiritual part. So I don't feel guilty when I appreciate the art of other races. It's because I appreciate it for what it is, which is an expression of their biospirit. And as long as that happens in China, that's no problem. I just don't want to see it in my neighborhood. um, let's go to Eindelen.
I think it's an interesting what you brought up as far as the appreciation for natural light, especially in architecture and things like that. Even down to like our older houses in my area, my house in particular, before the days of air conditioning and climate control, windows also used to be placed in a certain way that would you'd be able to draw air through the entire house by opening certain windows. So the window pattern used to be a lot more functional. They had to consider different things, and it actually works. If you open up certain windows in certain parts of your house, you can basically drag air through the whole house, a nice cross draft. That's a whole different conversation, but this was another great space, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys on the weekend now that I'm so busy during the week. So between today and yesterday, it's just really good to hang out with you guys. So I miss you guys during the week, but yeah, good talking to y'all, and see you soon.
Three Godfather.
Brother, once again, a great space. I appreciate you doing the hosting duties. To Hank, I would suggest that it might be, these things are interesting from an academic discussion standpoint, but in terms of ending our victimization as white people, they're kind of useless. What's beauty? What's art? These are these are all things that are very subjective, and they're not universally held beliefs. So once again, as Hans beautifully pointed out, we simply wish to see that which resonates with our own biospirit.
Three, your sound animation is still running, although I don't hear any sound. Have you finished?
That was it, sir.
Thank you. Bye, Spirit.
Thank you for another wonderful afternoon under the shade tree, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Hans.
This has been the Sunday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG space. We meet here daily at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We practice the Go Free lexicon and concepts as developed by Jason Kiernan, Mr. No White Guilt himself. You can find him here on X as No White Guilt NWG, elsewhere as simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. I want to thank each and every one of the speakers and all of you who showed up to listen. You all make this space possible by bringing your diverse skills and intelligence here for all of us to share. Without all of your participation as speakers or listeners, it would just be my handsome self. Thanks again. I truly appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. I love you all and hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.
Our children are priceless, and we would do anything to protect them. So why aren't you using Go Free to protect them from the most harmful ideas? Decades in the making, Go Free is a simple yet brilliant practice designed to free us from destructive socio-political ideas. As words are the tools with which we think, Go Free promotes precise, simple, and targeted language to counteract psychological warfare. When you go free of the system's control over your word choice, you liberate your thinking. As you grow, you can empower others. And the most important thing you can do is inoculate our children against the ideas that are meant to harm them.
Are you noticing changes in our country you find troubling? Do you feel unsafe and at a loss to remedy these fundamental shifts? Have you found the book Go Free by Jason Kuna? The Go Free method provides excellent meme curatives and specific language skills to overcome the anti-white psychological warfare being waged against us across the West. Go Free, a guide to aligning with the archetype of Western kind by Jason Kuna, available on Amazon.